magnetic resonance images using StyleGAN. Before diving into the details of my paper, I would like to share with you the motivation for our work. So, as we all know, deep learning models have achieved impressive results in several different areas. In specific, in computer vision tasks like image classification, image segmentation, and object detection. This is possible when we have a complex model, for example, a CNN, that is a convolutional neural network, used with a large, balanced, and labeled data set, and therefore we can achieve good results with this combination. However, in the medical field, this is an example of a very big and famous dataset that's called ImageNet. And when we have this combination, so a very large dataset and a good model, we can have impressive results. But in the medical dataset, when we are talking about medical datasets, we have a problem because most medical datasets are small and unbalanced. On one hand, labeling a medical dataset, it's time expensive and needs to be done by experts. So in this figure over here, I have an example of labeling. We have an MR slice, abdominal slice of a patient with an adrenal lesion at this region. Then a medical expert does the labeling process. On the other hand, medical datasets tend to have very different number of samples per class. They are unbalanced because it's difficult to find a situation when we have the same amount of patients with and without the lesion or disease that we are studying. This is even a greater challenge when we are analyzing rare lesions or rare diseases. So we have to find ways to improve our medical datasets. For that, we have data augmentation techniques. We have the legacy techniques or traditional techniques that consist of creating alternative versions of our original images by doing rotations, flips, or other transformations to the images, and then add those transformations to our real dataset, to our final dataset. However, this is not enough to improve the learning capacity of our model if we are talking about very small medical datasets or very unbalanced datasets. So we can think of more complex ways to perform these augmentations, such as creating synthetic images, which is the main objective of my research work paper. That is to synthesize abdominal magnetic resonance images using a very small data set and also using GANs that are the deep learning model used for image synthesis that I will explain later. Then we will evaluate our synthetic data set using known measures that I will explain during our results presentation. So at this point, it's important to understand what is a GAN. A GAN stands for Generative Adversarial Network and consists of two different networks. One, it's the discriminator network that has the objective to differentiate between a real image and a fake image. And the other one, it's the generator network that only has the objective to create images, to create the most realistic image. Those two networks are trained in parallel, and the training process reaches the end when they achieve a stable state where the discriminator isn't able to distinguish between a real image and a fake image. GANs have achieved impressive results on the synthesis of natural images. For example, we can see here 8 synthetic faces created by this type of networks. And the question is, can we apply these networks to the synthesis of medical images? The answer is yes. In the recent years, there have been many research on this topic. For example, we can use, again, to synthesize patches of the images. For example, in this figure, we see several synthetic lesions of the liver. Or we can use it to synthesize complete images. For example, here there are synthetic magnetic resonance images that were created from another type of image. So this is another application of GANs, that is to convert between different image modalities. In this case, this is a magnetic resonance synthetic image that was created from a computed tomography data set. So overall, the objective of the research is to create realistic synthetic data sets to augment our real data sets. And the results have been mixed, so it is possible to create realistic images, like these images, for example, and these, but until now it was not possible to prove that they present a good value when are augmenting real data sets. So, entering into the methods of our paper, we used a very small data set called the chaos dataset that only has 40 patients. We selected only a subset with magnetic resonance images, and our final dataset at only 1,300 slices of magnetic resonance images. In terms of the model that we selected the style GAN, which is a complex type of GAN that was created with the objective of the generation of high fidelity images. Then style GAN 2 was created to remove some special artifacts from the original version. And finally, the GAN that we used, the model that we used, was created for training with limited data, which was our case. To the training process and also to generate our dataset, we used the official PyTorch implementation. So, after the training process and the selection of our best model, we were able to create a synthetic dataset of magnetic resonance images. And from that dataset, I randomly choose, so fetch the images, and 2 images. Here I have one synthetic image and a real image. This real image was selected to pair with this image in the same or similar anatomical position in terms of the slice. So this is one pair, and over here we have another synthetic image. I think the contrast is not very nice, but okay. We can see, even though I'm not a medical expert, I can see that the synthetic images are realistic and they can mimic an actual patient in a real data set. I can see that. So what we just performed here is a type of evaluation of our synthetic data set that it's called visual inspection, and of course this has to be done with much more samples and by medical experts, of course. There is another way to evaluate those data sets, that is to use a downstream task. For example, we take our synthetic data set and we train another model for segmentation or classification and see the results, or we can add the synthetic data set with a real data set and see the effects on training on other tasks like classification or segmentation. However, there are also specific metrics that measure the quality of our synthetic dataset. For example, FID and KID, which are very similar, and they both they are measures of the similarity between the feature representations of the real and the generated samples, and they differ in the way how to compute that similarity. For both metrics, the best value is 0. Finally, we have precision and recall. Here, precision is a measure of the realism of our dataset, and recall a measure of the variability. Both values will be presented in percentage. So now we can evaluate our results in terms of these metrics. This plot here shows the evolution of the FID metric, which is the most common metric used in the state of the art. We can see that there is a general decreasing tendency as expected, because the best value of this metric is 0. However, we see that in its earlier stages of training, the metric reached a plateau, some kind of plateau. And Here, the training time is measured in terms of thousands of real images shown to the discriminator. In hours, our training process was about 70 hours, which could be optimized. Our best model achieved the following metrics in terms of KID, FID, precision, and recall, and we were able to compare our model with other 3 applications, with other 3 works. And we can see that our metrics are in the same order of magnitude of the other works. However, they were slightly worse, but we cannot perform an exact comparison because these are very, very different images that we are comparing to, because on the second line we have a data set with breast cancer histological images. On the third line, we have a data set with human faces from works of art, and in the last line, we have a data set that consists of animal faces. Yes. However, we can verify from this table that the model that achieved the best values of these metrics is also the model that have the biggest real data set. So it's in the last line. Reaching the final slides, I want to share with you the major outcomes of this research paper. So we were able to create realistic images using a small data set, a small real data set. However, after a more global inspection and looking at our recall value, we see that our synthetic data set lacks variability, which can be related with a very small size of our data set. So our model wasn't able to learn the spectrum of different images in our data set. Then, in terms of evaluation metrics, FID is the most used metric in the state of the art, yes, but it has a problem when the generator just creates very similar images, or it's just making a copy of the real data set. So FID, it's not sensitive to that, to those situations. However, KID, it's much more sensitive to that, so it's a more suitable metric for small data sets. However, both FID and KID base their values on the output of an inception model, which is a model trained with ImageNet. ImageNet, it's a very big data set that consists only of natural images, cats, dogs, persons, people, of course. So we have to analyze the results of those metrics with care when we are in the medical imaging field. Finally, we conclude that the use of a downstream task it's required, and it's the most realistic way to evaluate our synthetic data set. However, we weren't able to do it because we didn't have the necessary ground truth data. So, which leads us to our future developments separated in 3 areas. In terms of the data set, we have now access to another data set from a Portuguese hospital with all the ground truth data available. These patients have adrenal lesions, so it's a bigger and better data set. In terms of modeling, we are currently experimenting with StyleGAN 3 and testing other types of augmentations. And finally, in terms of evaluation, we want to show our synthetic dataset to a team of medical experts and also to test the generated dataset for lesion detection. So thank you for listening to me. Feel free to answer any questions. It's okay.
Thank you very much, Bernardo, for an interesting presentation. We would like to open the floor to questions. So if you've got any question that you want to present.
Hello, Bernardo.
Hello.
Can you tell us what you expect your research in the future of medical image analysis?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you for your question. So I hope that with this technique of synthesis of images, we can surpass the current limitations of our medical data sets that are indeed unbalanced and small in some cases. So with this technique, I think that we can solve that problem, not now, but in future, because now it's not possible. But I will try my best.
Excellent presentation. I just have two questions. I think I'm aware that GAN is useful in generation of synthetic data. I wonder whether there was other options you had in your mind, like variation autoencoders or like any other thing. Yeah, I wonder about the choice of GAN.
The model. Okay. So, in terms of image synthesis, these networks were presented in 2014, and they were created solely for the synthesis of images. However, they can do other things, but they are the default network used for the synthesis of images. So I solely focused my research on this type of networks. So that's the reason.
And how much data did we synthesize? Like how many more images?
Okay, we can synthesize how many data. There isn't a number of specific images that we can synthesize because we can synthesize the number that we want, but they will be very similar because there is no the variability is not good enough. But we can synthesize how many we can.
Okay, the last question. You can pass the mic to one colleague.
Hello. Hi.
Hello.
Okay, if there's little variability, wouldn't it be maybe useful to use other images to create more synthetic data?
Yes, our dataset that we used on this research work was very small, and it was the only that we had. But we have the objective to use a greater and better dataset to improve our results, and therefore we can have a better synthetic dataset. So that's.
Thank you very much, Bernardo. We can continue to ask him some questions during the sidelines of the conference, but for now, in the interest of time, we have to go to the next presentation. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next presenter is Victor. As Victor is preparing his slide, I will make a short introduction. Okay, standing before us is Victor. He is from Dedan Kimathi University of Technology in Kenya. He is based at the Center for Data Science and Artificial Intelligence. He is a graduate in electrical and electronics engineering, and he has got a keen eye for technology, its exponential growth, and its impact in the modern day world. He is deeply passionate about data science and the implementation of digital systems, and he possesses some excellent technical skills. He is also interested in machine learning and artificial science. So with this introduction, I will hand over to you, Victor.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I am honored to be here today to present to you a research project that is titled Comparison of Wearable and Computer Vision-Based Approaches to Knee Flexion Angle Measurements. I worked on this project with Anthony Gitau and Dr. Gishathi Wanjema, who is the field expert, and Professor Shira Minor, who is a professor in electrical and electronics engineering. And we did it at the Center for Data Science and Artificial Intelligence in Dedan Kimathi University of Technology. The motivation behind this research, we're trying to leverage Internet of Things and computer vision in being able to help the recovery of orthopedic patients who have undergone joint trauma or surgery, such as total knee replacement. We're working with a field expert, and he challenged us to come up with solutions that leverage modern technology to aid him in monitoring the recovery of orthopedic patients, since he was doing 3 to 4 total knee replacements in a month. And with such, we're trying to implement a prototype that is able to operate in a low resource setting, both financially and computationally. And also we are trying to automate that process of being able to aid the recovery of patients who have undergone joint trauma. So the problem area, current solutions in measuring the flexion angle of a joint, let's say you're on a hike somewhere or you're in a sporting activity and you injure your knee. When you go to an orthopedic specialist, you can be able to see there. The specialist is going to monitor your knee by using a device called a goniometer to be able to assess your effective range of motion of the joint. So we're trying to see how we can solve this using modern technology. The current implementation has several drawbacks, such as being invasive to the patient. You can see there's physical contact between the patient and the specialist. So we're trying to remove that inconvenience because it might be uncomfortable to the patient. And we're also, this goniometer also relies on the accuracy of the clinician in being able to take the readings and also record the angle that is being measured. And also, we're also tracking of the progress of recovery is also done manually. So we're trying to see if we can use technological ways to be able to aid the tracking of the recovery progress of a patient. So the primary goal of this research is to employ innovative data-driven methods to determine the flexion angle of the joint within its range of motion. And we're going to do it using 2 ways: implementing a wearable device that utilizes IoT solutions, Internet of Things, and also implement a human pose model that is able to take in an image of a subject, superimpose a skeleton over the image, and also generate the flexion angle of the joint that we are trying to get the angle from. Also, we want to effectively apply this method such that patients who are living in remote locations can be able to get feedback from a specialist when they have the device in their homes, removing the barrier that's there, just in case we have a patient who is in a remote location and they're not easily able to access specialized clinics. So this is how we're going to apply the methodology. We have the wearable device. You can see it to the right. It is a knee brace, since we are focusing on the knee. If we were focusing on the elbow, it would have been an elbow brace. And over here, you can see this is a flex sensor. And we have a microcontroller, the Arduino BLE Sense. And this is a battery here that powers this. So it can work independently. And this is how it works. So we have a patient with wearing the wearable device, and it's able to send the value of the measured angle via Bluetooth, and it's stored online in a time series database. So you can see here, this is a subject wearing the wearable device. When standing, it measures 0 flexion, since you haven't flexed your knee. When you're seated, it gives you a flexion angle, and this flexion angle is recorded somewhere for comparison now with what we are going to implement next, which is the human pose model. So the human pose model works in this, as illustrated here. This is a subject who is in the field of view of a webcam. So the the subject within the field of view of a webcam. So it goes through, this is the main microprocessor that we're using. It's the NVIDIA Jetson Nano. Since one of our objectives is to implement the human pose model in a low resource setting, this is an onboard microcomputer, same as your laptop, but on a small scale, powerful enough to run the model itself and also support signals that you're getting from the wearable device. So the Jetson Nano houses our model. So from a live video stream of the subject, it's able to superimpose a skeleton. And from this, we're able to actually develop an algorithm that measures the angle. Let's say if you're focusing on the right knee, you can see that we're able to get the angle there for the right knee, and we're able not to compare this angle with the angle that we're getting from the wearable device. So the same thing happens. It's stored in a time series database, and now we're able to compare the readings we get from the two implementations. So to my next slide. This is how the pose model works. It is based off an open source software called MediaPipe. It's developed by Google. So since it's an open source software, we aim to specialize it to perform a specific task. For us, it's to get the angle of flexion of the joint. So if you're focusing on the knee joint, let's say the right knee joint, this is a mapping of, let's say, anyone here in this room who stands in front of a webcam connected to the model. This is how it's able to map all the joints of your body. And from this, you can derive the angle, let's say, from the right knee, right elbow, left elbow, your ankle if possible, other joints of the body. And this is generally how the whole implementation works. We have the wearable device sending signals to now the Jetson Nano. This forms the heart of our project because it processes both the signals from the wearable device and houses the model that now generates the skeleton to obtain the flexion angle. This is a subject that we have who has the wearable device and the model now calculating the angle. So both these angles are stored in the cloud in a time series database, and you can be able to plot it such that the specialist is able to view angles from both implementations. Why are we using the Jetson Nano? As I have said, it has a small footprint that caters for the fact that we are trying to implement this in a low resource setting, and it has strong computational capability because it has NVIDIA's GPU cores, and the GPU cores provide enhanced computational power for machine learning tasks. Also, it offers seamless integration with multiple IoT accessories, allowing for versatile connectivity options. The results of our implementation, we can see that here we have a subject with a wearable device. So we're able to get two readings from the wearable device, the flexion angle of the left knee. And as you can see, I'll show you just a graph of the results. This is a comparison of the measured angles when static. Let's say when standing, the blue line shows the angle from the wearable device, and the orange line shows us the angle from the human pose model, and you can see they are somewhat similar. And when in dynamic motion, let's say we have a subject and we ask them to perform a range of motions, so you can be able to see that we have a trend line from both the wearable and the human pose model at specific times during the assessment. And from this, we can be able to see how the patient is progressing. Let's say when we're going through the monitoring their recovery. So, in conclusion, we were able to successfully develop a working prototype implemented using the wearable device and the real-time human pose estimation model. And also, we were able to store the data in an online database such that you're able to see the flexion angle data in real time. Future outlook, we want to optimize the wearable device to also measure additional parameters. As we know, let's say if you have a trauma to the knee joint, might be might be, we can see that any joint on your body is a neuromuscular junction. It also receives nerve signals such that your muscles at the joint can be able to flex and extend. So we're trying to figure out a way to implement a way of taking in additional parameters such as EMG. I'm sure you've heard of EMG. It measures how nerve signals are received at the joint. Also, we're trying to optimize the performance of the human pose model to be able to run on a higher frame rate in the low resource setting, because we're trying to deploy the device in remote areas. So currently our implementation runs at, say, 20 frames per second. We want to optimize that to higher frame rate for more accurate results. And also we want to optimize the model, as I've said, to be able to run remotely, such that you're able to monitor patients' flexion angle remotely in the comfort of their homes. So we're able to do this project by a team. Professor Shira Maina, Anthony Gitao is there, and Dr. Gishazi Wanjema, who's a field expert, acknowledging them for the work that they contributed to this. And I'll thank you for listening to my presentations.
Thank you very much, Victor, for an interesting presentation. We want to open the floor to questions. Yes.
Thank you for a presentation. Excuse me. Thank you for your presentation. My question is, are you really planning to compare your result with experts who are really measuring it using the old systems? If you do so, what was the result?
Yeah, okay. Actually, the problem case arose from the fact that we are working with a field expert, as I mentioned, Dr. Gishazi Wanjema, and from them they challenged us to come up with a method that utilizes technological innovation. So we have readings that they have when they are monitoring the patients, and now the readings that we're getting from the device we've implemented, and we're trying to compare those to see if we can be able to use the technologically developed the method that we're using, the prototype we've developed. We're trying to see if we can use it independently without needing the presence of the clinician in that sense. So we're still in the process of development and ensuring that we have accurate results, because we know of key importance is that analysis and results that we get from medical assessments need to be as accurate as possible. Yeah.
Any other question? If we don't have any other question, we would like to thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Now we invite our colleague, David Yuri. So as David prepares his presentation, I'll give a brief introduction. David Yuri comes from the same institution as Victor. He comes from Dedan Kimathi University of Technology in Kenya, and they are based at the Center for Data Science and Artificial Intelligence. His interests are on computer vision and model deployment, and he has got also ongoing work in artificial intelligence assisted annotation of image and video data. So his interest is in the application of these models in wildlife conservation as well as health. He's going to present his work, which is entitled Unsupervised Discovery of Echocardiographic Views for Rheumatic Heart Disease Diagnosis. Over to you, David.
Thank you, Trust. Good morning, everyone. So I'm Yuri Njathi. I'm going to take you through unsupervised discovery of echocardiographic views for rheumatic heart disease diagnosis. My co-authors are Lona Mugambi, Dr. Laizul Zuke, and Professor Shira Wamaina. So the motivation and the problem area is rheumatic heart disease. So a cardiologist, that is Dr. Laizul, came to us with an issue, which is rheumatic heart disease. She explained to us how late diagnosis of the disease is really bad for patients because it affects patients when they are really young, children and youth in low and middle income countries. And if we're able to find a solution to detect rheumatic heart disease early, it would be, just best for their whole life. What does rheumatic heart disease do? It damages your valves. So there are 4 valves in your heart. I'm not a medical doctor, I'm an engineer, so this part, yeah. There are 4 valves in your heart. What the kind of damage that it causes is the one on the right. Your valves thicken, there's regurgitation, they stop functioning as they should. Okay, currently, rheumatic heart disease is diagnosed in 2 ways. There's the one most people know, use a stethoscope. Doctor comes, listens to your heart. They do something called osculation, so it's listening for heart murmurs. That heart murmurs are usually when blood kind of is regurgitating, it's going back. The valve is not actually fully closed. And there's also taking of ultrasounds. An ultrasound usually takes around an hour per session, and that's for only one person. But echocardiograms are really the better standard because you can find RHD early. Okay. As I said, we are looking into early RHD diagnosis, but I'm not actually going to talk about diagnosis. I'm going to talk about a step towards diagnosis. And the step is, if you want to see the valves, you need to see them through certain views. And the view here we're looking at is primarily the one on the top left. It's the parasternal long axis view. You can see the mitral valve and the aortic valve very clearly in those views. Okay. This is the kind of data that we have. And the parasternal long axis view is the one labeled in blue, and the label for the mitral and aortic valve are there. Previously, we tried using supervised learning to do the diagnosis, where we would have the medical expert, Dr. Laizul, annotate videos and images from patients. But then the problem with that is it became very expensive because she's a doctor, it's her time. This is the kind of data we actually got because we annotated 77 videos and there were 771 videos not annotated. And we wanted to do more research, but this was the problem. So what did we do? We are exploring echocardiographic data using unsupervised methods to find the relationship between the imagery in the echocardiographic data and the echocardiographic views. Specifically, we'll use principal component analysis to perform dimensionality reduction on the videos, and then use agglomerative clustering to group the videos, and then compare the results using dendrograms and visual methods. This is the whole pipeline: video to frames, flattened. We get each video and its components, then we cluster. This is the data sourced from Dr. Laizul, cardiologist and a co-author. In the data set, you can see different views. In the middle, the middle top, there's apical 4 chamber. On the left, there's parasternal short axis. Middle bottom, parasternal long axis. On the right, is the apical four chamber. This data set is collected, it has different views, comes from different sources, taken at different times from different patients. We split the data set into three. First, a data set of 15 videos, all from one source and all labeled. Then, a second data set, 77 videos, all from one source, labeled and unlabeled. 27% of the data set was discarded due to some obstructions. And the third is 848 videos from multiple sources, not all were labeled. We had to do some pre-processing to make it more computationally efficient. In the end, we'd take the original video, grayscale it, crop out all unnecessary information, and then binary threshold. And then we'll conduct principal component analysis. This converts a video into an X and Y value, because in this case we're using 2D PCA. After that, we'd take those points and cluster them. So different videos with different views, the expectation is they should be clustered in different groups. So for example, in the first data set, with 15 videos, we have the three views that we all know. They're clustered on the left. Then the actual clusters that the model has on the right. And from the dendrograms A, B, and C, you can see that all the plaques views were clustered together. There are three apical four chamber videos that are clustered together, but also two SACS views were clustered together with the apical four chamber views. But this showed promise. This is visual inspection. So A and B, I'm just going to take A and B. There are three videos, all three are known, and all three are plaques, and you can see all three are similar. And the B, clustered together, but in the wrong cluster, but they're also similar. But they also look like apical four chamber. Okay, the second data set. This is where we actually wanted to test the theory. Can we actually project it to a larger scale? So we have 77 videos. In this case, they're around 56 because some were discarded. Then, okay, some are apical four chamber. For example, video 11 is apical four chamber. The video next to it is unknown. That's video 50. Then, but they're clustered together. And then that's A. A is video 11. It's apical four chamber. Is video 50 apical four chamber? It is. Also, I'll give an example is plaques 2, because plaques is really the one we are interested in. So video 2 is plaques. Video 44 and video 1 were clustered. They were said to be very similar according to the model. An array, it's video 2 is plaques. Video 4 and video 1 are unknown, but they look similar. Okay, then after that we tried to and see whether we can scale this. We have come from 15, we've gone to 56. Can we go to 848 videos? Unfortunately, in this case, we did not, because the configuration, as I said, the videos were taken from different people using different machines, different configurations. What we found, though, which was very interesting, is we're able to actually place the videos together based on the source. So if you're able to baseline the source and configure everything the same way, we should be able to move from what we got from dataset 2 to dataset 3. Okay, business potential. There's a high business potential case will be to design an ultrasound device that uses embedded ML to aid sonographers in locating the view of interest quicker. So that means we don't take an hour. We want to take the shortest time possible, but get as high accurate results as possible. In conclusion, looking to locate the plaques, sacs, and apical four chamber views, unsupervised methods are promising. These results are for two-component PCA, which explains about 20 to 30% of the variance. That means if we go to higher D PCA, we expect 70% variance or higher. We should be able to get even better results. This is only for 30% of the variance. We must also control for machines when performing analysis. Potential to reduce annotation time by a factor of 2 or 3. Why? Because if we're able to split the data into its clusters based on the view, we'll only have to look at the Plex view and won't have to look at the non-Plex views. Currently, we're also looking into TSNI and higher D PCA. These are indicative references for the slides I've shown you. There are more references in the paper. I want to acknowledge Data Science Africa for their affiliated center program support, Google for a research award, the NVIDIA Corporation for a hardware grant, and Kenneth for a travel and conference grant. So my co-authors, Lona Mugambi, Professor Lizul Zuke, Professor Shira Omaina, and Kozi.
Thank you very much, Yuri, for an interesting presentation again, focusing on rheumatic heart disease, which is a disease which adversely affects people in the low to medium income countries. So we would like to open the floor to discussion. We want to invite some questions. Yes.
Excuse me. Thank you, Yuri, for the nice presentation. I'm interested to know what's the take of, I understand that you mentioned that you're working with a cardiologist. What is your take on the results that you obtained using the unsupervised methods? How did they rate the performance of the unsupervised methods you're using?
They rated them as promising. It was interesting that we were able to find that the data was from different sources, though she had not actually told us. So that was interesting. We were able to find information from the data set that she gave us. So the whole point of what she's doing, because she has written a paper with very many other doctors before, with the World Heart Federation. So it's really a look into trying to get rid of rheumatic heart disease in younger people. And they're trying to do very large-scale screening of very many people. And these results, she was glad because she saw, okay, we can actually do a lot of processing for a lot of people in a shorter period of time.
Great.
Thank you. Any other question? If we don't have any question, we'd like to thank you very much, Yuri.
Thank you.
Our next presenter is Professor Chipo. As she comes to prepare her presentation, I will give a brief bio. Right. Professor Chipo Kanjo is an associate professor in computer science at University of Malawi. She is the deputy academic center leader for the Center of Resilient Agro-Food Systems under the African Centers of Excellence 2 project, which is funded by the World Bank. She has got over 20 years experience in ICT research, and her research includes health information systems, e-governance, and ICT for development. She also researched on health informatics, focusing at community and facility levels, and exploring the challenges in realizing good data quality for health information systems. She is a Diplo Foundation alumnus, and she has got a lot of experience but in the interest of time, I will just indicate what stands out from her bio. She is a member of the Interim Committee for the Malawi Health Information Association and also an active member of the Malawi M-Health Technical Working Group, Community Health, Health System Monitoring and Evaluation, as well as the National Data Standards. She has been an active member of several boards at national and regional level, including the Open Society for Southern Africa, OSISA. Over to you, Chipo.
Thank you so much. Like already mentioned, I'm Chipo Kanjo from Malawi. My presentation today is on systematic supervision, which is key to sustainable system implementation. This is a case of integrated community health information system, a system which we are developing for the Ministry of Health for Malawi. The background being that before we used to have so many fragmented systems, even at community level, whereby the community health workers would have so many gadgets for different programs. And as a way of easing that challenge, the ministry came up with an idea of integrating all the functionalities. And this is the system we're developing. And we noted that having developed the system, supervision is quite critical as we went along. So supervision, essentially it entails guiding, monitoring, coaching the workers with the hope that in return you're going to promote compliance by the users and the quality care service is going to improve. Staff ends up being motivated if they know exactly what they have to do. And also you end up having improved engagement, both for supervisors and those who are being supervised. And here, systemic supervision, we noted that has the potential to improve the quality of healthcare and management. It also has the potential to enhance skills of health workers and improve their performance. And it's critical specifically in health at community level because this is a core health systems functions where having implemented, having deployed, there is need to monitor what these users are doing. What motivated this paper was the fact that we noted that for the e-health system implementers, normally the practices are that you do the solicitation of requirements, you develop your system, you train the users how to use the system, and then you give them the initial supervision in the field. In most cases, it ends there with the hope that maybe people at the district level or from the ministry are going to continue working on the supervision. So we noted as we started implementing this project together with the ministry that something is missing. User engagement after training is not systematic. And then there was also need for joint stakeholder supervision because as developers, you train them, but then what's next? There's need for someone to pick up from where you left so that they ensure that the users are doing the right thing. Where they're having challenges, they're being assisted. And it was also important to have feedbacks. So without going back to the field to supervise them, it was not easy to get the necessary feedbacks. And these feedbacks also help to improve and refine the work of the program being developed. The main objective here, therefore, was to illustrate the critical role that supervision plays in system implementation. Not just a one-off supervision, but something which is done systematically. Specifically, we're looking at how supervision improves performance and motivates the users. And also a look at the impact that lack of supervision may have in the process of system implementation. I mentioned that this work was done as we're implementing a system known as Integrated Community Health Information System. So this system has it's used for service-specific, or it has service-specific modules. It also has some cross-cutting modules for supply chain, drug and supply ordering, reporting, and also for supervision. So we have things like household register, community register, where the community health workers would go out in the community, register different households tagged to a particular community. And for each household, they would also register the persons under that particular household. So for the households, they would also collect data related to the environment. So here we have the environmental health data. For community, they would collect data related to different communities. And then for personal register, this is tagged to the different programs, be it nutrition, HIV, tuberculosis, malaria, and so on and so forth. The architecture for IKIS leverages the DHIS2 platform, which is open source. Others earlier already mentioned about this. It provides a modular and integrated platform, which is role-based controlled system access. That's IKIS, based on what role you have within the health structure. That's the type of access you would also get. IKIS server has some ubiquitous access, as it allows for, it uses both the web and Android. The methodology which we used for this was interpretive, and we used data from 2 districts named Dowa and Kasungu, and we were assessing a total of 147 community health workers. This included 3 supervisions in one of the districts and 2 in the other. The supervision teams, having noted the need for sustainability, the need for continuous supervision, we had an integrated type of supervision which involved the community health services section, the owners of this particular system. It also involved the digital health division in the Ministry of Health, who are the custodians of all digital systems, and it also involved the CMED, Center for Monitoring and Evaluation Division, and these are the custodians of data responsible for monitoring and evaluation. It also involved us, University of Malawi, as the technical leads, and the district team, which includes all the district health managers within a particular district. The methods which we used were mostly observation. You go out there in the field, you observe how they're working, whether they're doing the right thing. You observe what they've already captured in the app, what they have already captured in the manual registers. You interview them to find out whether they have challenges. You coach them where necessary, retrain where necessary, and then resolve the queries. The tools which were used were supervision guidelines, and also jointly we came up with a compiled list of what to look for at each health facility. The activities conducted included reviewing available data in the system, reviewing the paper-based community health registers, reviewing the data which had already been captured in the Integrated Community Health Information System application, and checking whether it has been synchronized, and also added to that were some mentorship. Major outcomes, we noted that out of the 2 districts, the initial supervision, when we went back after the initial supervision, the results were different. And they were different because of the way the 2 districts had planned their supervision. In Kasungu, it was there was no schedule for supervision. In Dowa, that was being spearheaded by an NGO, and they had a well-structured supervision guideline too, and that was also tied to the performance of the community health workers in a way that it was also contributing towards the performance evaluation. And that made a big difference because they were doing things systematically. In Kasungu, on the other hand, they had no set milestones for the community health workers, and this was led by the district health management team. No schedules and milestones were set, and 5 months down the line, we found that most community health workers had not yet started capturing data in their registers. And a number of challenges and success stories were encountered in both districts. Over time, with follow-up supervisions, we noted that things improved quite a lot, and data was captured in the community health register and the Integrated Community Information System application. Along the way, as we supervised, we were also noting the best and worst performers. For the best performers, they were being encouraged and also used as trainers in the other districts where we were deploying the system further. For the worst performers, would give them more time and pair them up with their peers so that they get more coaching continuously. Just to mention some of the challenges, we had issues like non-functional or damaged tablets. There was cases where they would lack the data bundles. Connectivity, being in rural settings, mostly was poor. And in some cases, we found that much as the other factors would be okay, the attitude for some of the community health workers would be problematic. And in some cases, in a few sites, some community health workers were finding it difficult to use the app, largely because the initial training was not done properly. And there was also a challenge that they lacked technicians close by where they could immediately report the challenges. And these challenges were later resolved through the interactions which we had with them. In all this, we noted that supervision exercise provided an opportunity to check performance on data collection for the community health workers. Those who were slacking initially, with continuous supervision, they improved their performance. We also had a chance to check community health workers' proficiencies, unlike if we had just implemented and left, would have believed that they capturing the data, but in actual fact, some had challenges. So this assisted to check on the proficiencies. It also helped to diagnose challenges and errors which were available on the app, so that we refine those errors as we went along. It also assisted to improve the quality of the IKIS app, and that's a follow-up because having diagnosed the errors, in return, it would indeed improve the quality of the application. This supervision also motivated the community health workers. Those who were doing well, they were motivated, and the fact that they would go and train others gave them more. It gave them more motivation to do more in the field. Those who were slacking, the supervisions gave them a push. We had a case where some even would hide whenever we went for supervision because they hadn't done anything. So this helped to push them. It also helped to revisit areas which were not clear. It helped for the community health workers to become more engaged. And we also noted that they were free to seek clarifications. In conclusion, discussion, we noted that there were also some systemic gaps which were reviewed through these supervisions. Most importantly, we noted that there was no proper coordination and planning at the district health management team level, whereby the same community health workers would be required to do so many things, including data collection. They would be required to go for polio vaccination, COVID vaccination. On the other hand, they're the same people required to do data collection. So the work coordination for different programs, projects, initiatives, if properly planned, it could ease the work burden placed on the community health workers. And this was highlighted, and efforts were made to rectify these issues. The poor coordination across programs and activities, we noted that it also affects service delivery. Again, like mentioned, the data collection activities were affected as some community health workers used the slowness in collecting data using the reason that they were engaged with other activities. In conclusion, we found that supervision is vital for the community health workers to sustain good practice throughout community health work and data collection. The supervisions also provided the workers with an opportunity to reorient what they had learned, refresh, and then they were able to work effectively. The supervisions also, most importantly, revealed the systemic gaps that would otherwise remain hidden. And we're saying supervision is very important, not just for this work, but for any system to succeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Chipo, for such an insightful presentation with the interesting findings. We would like to invite some questions. Yes.
Thank you, Professor Chipo, for really exciting topic. My question is, in terms of evaluating the supervision mechanism itself, is there any plan in the future whether the supervision mechanism might really miss some areas that are not really supervised, that is showing sort of key performance indicators in other areas that should be looked at? Is there any plan in the future of this area? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, the future is already here because based on the findings which we got, a supervision module was developed, and there's a proper guideline which should be used across all the different districts. Thank you.
One more question. Okay. If we don't have any question, I'll just pose one question. So you talked about supervision. We know that it's actually indispensable towards bringing credibility to data management. But if we look at the costs that are involved, like will it be sustainable considering that like in low to medium income countries, we are overburdened with so many health challenges. So in terms of allocation of funds, do you think the supervision part will be given enough funding.
Okay, thank you very much. I've gone back to this slide where we have a look at the supervision teams. The last bullet, we have district team. And these are much closer to the community health workers, and they're within the locality. And from the districts, the people who have been designated already as part of the existing system to monitor the community health workers. So what this has done is just reminding them what they're supposed to do. And our role mostly was to ensure that they get the proper training so that they're able to supervise the community health workers. And that's the way out for making it sustainable within the budgets.
Thank you. Let us give a round of applause to Dr. Chiko. Now I will invite Professor Oli to come forward and make his presentation. I'll give a brief bio of Professor Oli. Okay, Professor Oli Vainio is Emeritus Professor of Clinical Microbiology and Immunology at the Faculty of Medicine, University of Turku in Finland. He is working as a special advisor at the Center of Medicine at the same university. He has got a long international career in working in different professional appointments as a researcher and visiting professor in Switzerland, where he spent 8 years, and also in Finland. He has extensive administrative experience. He served as a Dean for Education at the Faculty of Medicine from 2006 to 2013. He was a Director of Degree Program on Medicine at Ulm University from 2006 to 2017. He has participated in several European projects and activities in different roles, and he has published 150 articles in international peer-reviewed journals, and he has been an editor of AP, MIS, and also an editor of the Scandinavian Journal of Immunology. He has collaborated with African universities, starting with University of Namibia. In 2006, where he was appointed as a member of the steering committee to establish the School of Medicine. He is a founding member of the consortium of new Sub-Sahara African medical schools, and he is currently a member of its executive committee. There are so many things that he has done, but in the interest of time, I will hand over to you, Professor Oli.
Okay, thank you very much. As it's only me who is in between you and the coffee break, I'll try to be fast. So I will tell about our experience in a project that we call Africa-Finland Education Network, which aim is to encourage the use of e-health and e-learning tools, and also to improve the connectivity and healthcare infrastructure in rural setting in 3 African countries to improve the quality of healthcare service. And this project is part of a program called FAPI, which is funded by the Ministry of Education and Culture in Finland. FAPI is Finland Africa Platform for Innovation. And in this program, altogether 26 Finnish higher education institutions are involved, and the goal is to advance the UN Sustainable Development Goal number 9 on creating sustainable industry and innovations and infrastructure. This particular program is coordinated by my university, University of Turku. The activities in this program are peer-to-peer networking, enhancing interaction between Finnish and African actors, like participating in this particular conference here now. Gathering information and sharing experiences and in concrete actions, also in research, education, and co-creation. In our particular project, the Africa-Finland Education Network, we have participants from 4 countries. So from Namibia, UNAM, Welwitschia, higher education institutions, from Rwanda, University of Global Health Equity, and Adventist School of Medicine in East and Central Africa. And then from Tanzania we have University of Dar es Salaam and Muhimbili University, a zonal referral hospital in Beira area, and also the National Institute for Medical Research in Tanzania. And from Finland, my university is coordinating this. We are collaborating with Lappeenranta University of Technology in the infrastructure issues, and also with Tampere University. Then the chairman already mentioned about this consortium of new sub-Saharan African medical schools. That is also one of our partners. It has altogether more than 20, I think about 25 medical schools as partners at the moment. And if you are representing a new medical school less than, let's say, 10, 15 years of age, you are welcome to join us. And you can have more information from consams.net. These are the 3 pillars of our activity: e-teacher, pedagogy, basic pedagogy, and also training in how to utilize online, or how to make effective online teaching courses. Then in healthcare sector, we focus on maternal and child health, both service and education. And then aim is also to develop infrastructure in healthcare services in rural areas in those countries, Namibia, Tanzania, and Rwanda. E-learning has been available, online learning, already for 20 years, and because of the technology nowadays, it's very much used, and of course because of the COVID pandemic, every higher education institutions in the whole world was had to start using online learning tools. E-learning problems, online learning problems in Africa are that there's the broadband access is very low. Training of students and also trainers is not as good as it should be for the ICT skills. Lack of infrastructure, and the costs of data. And in addition, here is a figure about the internet penetration rate globally. And as you see in my country, in the Northern Europe, the penetration rate is close to 100%. In Africa, which is here in yellowish, Southern Africa, it's about more than 60%, and in the rest of Africa, it's even less. So that's causing, of course, challenges. And concerning the healthcare and health, we have challenges in Africa. So from the global health workforce, only less than 5% are located in Africa, but about 25% of the global burden of disease is in Africa. And on top of that, there is a huge lack of healthcare personnel, which is expected to almost double by 2035. So this altogether is a big problem, and we have to find ways to enhance and improve the healthcare services. Then a few words about the online learning, e-learning. The conditions, of course, if you want to utilize e-learning, is the use of internet, use of some type of learning management system. There are many of those. That is, with this system, it's possible to deliver learning courses in different forms. And one of the most important aspects of e-learning is that you have to take care of interaction and collaboration of the students and student trainers. It's not only that you provide the lecture online, but you have to activate the learners in different ways, and you have to be trained for that. Of course, e-learning has many advantages, but also limitations. Advantage side is that it's convenient, it's usually quite low cost, and you have a large selection of courses available. It's flexible, but of course there are limitations. As I mentioned already, access to internet is a big challenge. Then one option or one difficulty, a limitation, is also that people are not maybe trained well enough to design e-learning content. And also mentioned already that there is a low technology skill level, so that has to be improved as well. And what we have done in our project, which actually started in July last year, so it's not yet even 1 year that we have been doing, we started with delivering basic e-learning courses, how to become an e-teacher. With the content, it was a 3-week course, with the content to give you a background information and philosophy and pedagogy specific to online teaching. And then that was for 2 weeks, and then for 1 week there was a course design for particular individual learner who wanted to start and design his or her own course. And so far we have delivered 4 of these courses. Over 250 participants from these universities and institutions have been participating, and the overall feedback has been very, very good. People have been very, very interested and very enthusiastic about this, so that they can, for them, the threshold to start to become an e-learner or e-teacher is lower. We, in our particular case, we have used the Moodle learning platform. which actually many of the institutions that are involved also have chosen to use. Then about the focus area in healthcare that we are concentrating on is maternal and child health. And that is just a background about the Finnish healthcare system. The history of Neuvola, which is a Finnish name for a maternity and child health clinic, which was started already 100 years ago. At that time, the measures, I mean the maternal mortality, neonatal mortality rates were very high in Finland. Finland was a very poor country, and that was one reason, not the only reason, that these figures have improved dramatically. So the clinics were created to improve the nation's health by focusing on its children. And they provide comprehensive support to the whole family in order to give every child, regardless of their background, a healthy start in life by providing health care and practical advice. Mostly it's kind of preventional aspects, not so much of health care or health aspects. So the mothers already during pregnancy have see the doctor and the nurse many times and be prepared for the delivery, and then after delivery the mother and the child will be seen by the nurse regularly, and then later on also vaccinations and so on are done. The mother and child health activities, what we have in our network here at the moment, we are starting and moving from this basic e-teacher education to more health-specific area, and we have decided with consulting every partner to focus now on simulation training, and there to train the trainers. So the idea is that each institution has a team, and we are supporting that, which designs the course, online course on simulation based on their own local needs and local context, because each institution have different capabilities, different equipment and so on. So it's not that we design a single course, but we help them to design their own course. And we have selected neonatal emergency situations as the topic. For example, neonatal resuscitation and other emergency situations related to delivery and just after delivery. Then we also have research activities on the mother and child health as issue. Postpartum hemorrhage is a big problem in every country, in every part of these countries, and so that was decided together to as the topic of the research. And then also more biomedical research on human papillomavirus, which is causing cervical and other cancers, epidemiology, virology, and vaccination-related research issues. Then what about the connectivity and healthcare infra? I'm not an engineer. Somebody said that I'm not a medical doctor, I'm an engineer, so I'm the opposite. So I don't understand too much about these issues, but we are concentrating with or collaborating with the Lappeenranta University of Technology, where Professor Antti Pinomaa is in charge of this, and he has a long experience, together with Aalto University, which is other technical university in Finland. They have piloted this already in Namibia, in Zambia, and in Zimbabwe. So with providing electricity, connectivity, and digital services to improve the livelihood in rural communities. And so we are here now with our project to focus on healthcare infra. And what they have done is that they have self-powered and sustained energy solutions, so that with solar panels and battery energy storage, they can provide energy 24/7, which can give the power to the base station, but also power supply to customers around that in the rural area. And then with the electricity, you can utilize, or we can utilize these small cell-based stations to provide 4G connectivity. These base stations are provided by Nokia company, and here just an example on a container. So they are portable, not very expensive, but effective, so that they can give an internet connectivity with a radius about a few kilometers. And this then gives you a digital platform and possibility to provide services for healthcare, but not only for healthcare, but for example, a digital marketplace, e-education, e-training, e-government, whatever, where the internet is needed. And this system is compact, easy to use. This can be set up in, for example, in a container, but it can be set up in an existing school building or healthcare building or wherever. And we are piloting that now in northern Namibia, in Oshikoto region, in 3 different remote health clinics, with 100 to 200 kilometers from the closest hospital, which doesn't have internet connection, and some of them not even good electricity. So we are building this, and then with this system also to help training the personnel, community health workers there, and the personnel, nurses, midwives. There are no doctors in that particular place. We are also collaborating with a private company called HealthFox that has created a similar type of system, what they call imaging room, with the same idea that they can, this can be built in remote place, and the electricity is provided and internet connectivity is provided. And HealthFox company has created a cloud-based digital platform for healthcare services. So it's not an app, it's the platform which allows the connectivity of the local healthcare providers to consulting units or referral hospitals, and then there is a patient user face. It's either a smartphone or a computer, iPad, and so on. It can be part of the health clinic's equipment, for example. And with this system, the patient or the community health worker can be in touch with the local health providers and the healthcare services. And in this HealthFox platform, you can connect all type of applications for healthcare, and they have built themselves already many of those, and there are the contact details of that. If I don't know if this there's a no. There is a short video, but maybe I am not able to show that. If
this one.
okay, maybe it's not possible, but that was just about to show their activities in Southern Africa, in a rural area in Northern Cape. But let's skip that. So then, finally, about the future of our activity, we will continue in all of these three main themes: e-learning, mother and child health, and connectivity infrastructure. We are searching for funding to expand this. We are piloting that now in northern Namibia, but the next phase is to start the same activities in rural areas in Tanzania and also in Rwanda. And the focus is and will be in healthcare infrastructure in rural areas, improving connectivity, and when you do that, you provide the possibility for online training, online education, and for improved healthcare services. And maybe there is a possibility also to build the whole system like HealthFox imaging room. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Oli, for such an insightful presentation talking about capacity building in Africa and also how to develop the infrastructure. In the interest of time, we'll invite 2 questions.
Thank you for the presentation. I would like to know who is the primary target of the e-learning and education you are providing to those persons. Are for the public in general, or some persons in particular that could help the public in rural areas?
Yeah, thank you. So the primary target to start with will be the healthcare personnel in the rural setting. So be it midwives, nurses, or community health workers, because then they can train local people around, especially the community health workers. They are local people, they know their peers, and for them it will be easier to teach them. But of course this allows also people from district hospital or from health administration to provide education, be it for vaccination or whatever thing. And like in the HealthFox system, they have planned it, and what is already piloted in Northern Cape is that in this imaging room they have a big screen inside, so that they can have online courses there, so the participants from the health sector can follow the course. But then the screen can be turned outside, so that people outside can follow. So you can keep some educational training programs for the community people.
On that note, we would like to thank Professor Olive for the presentation, and I also want to give a round of applause to all the presenters. Thank you very much for your participation. I am really sorry that we have overlapped into the coffee break, but I really appreciate that you were able to stay. It shows how important the presentations were. But let us continue the discussions after this session. Let's continue to interact and discuss opportunities to learn and collaborate. Thank you very much.
to me if we've called the people to join the sessions? Okay. All right, thank you very much. My name is Jeanette Morwane. I'll be chairing today's session on e-government. I'm from the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies in South Africa. And I have panel members here with me. But before we go into the presentations, just in terms of e-government in Africa, just to give a context, to say, you know, we globally we have the United Nations e-government maturity index. It's a survey that the UN runs on an annual basis, and as South Africa and also other African countries, we contribute to that metrics. And it basically looks at key components of e-government in terms of whether the country has capacity to drive e-government within a country. It also looks at issues of infrastructure and connectivity, and most importantly also looks at governance matters, whether there is proper coordination, whether there is proper national strategies to drive that. And within our continent, in 2022, we have South Africa leading, and the global context, South Africa is number 65 out of, I think it's 117 countries or so, and Mauritius is number 2, is number 75 globally, and Seychelles is number 85. And then from 4 to 6, you have Tunisia, Morocco, and Egypt. But what's interesting is that we now have Rwanda that has leapfrogged from 10 places. They were initially at 129. Last year, they ranked 119. And the reason is because now they are starting to invest in ICT infrastructure. They are also investing in skills, and they are also now introducing a national e-government portal similar to Mauritius, Seychelles, and South Africa. So I just thought to give you those sort of contexts. But some of the key challenges for Africa is that there is inadequate investment in e-government development. I mean, I've been involved in the South African e-government program since 2016, and yeah, I feel like I'm growing older than I'm supposed to be because of not lack of funding, but lack of buy-ins and support from other government departments. Because in South Africa, departments have this thing of wanting to control their space, so collaboration seems to be a bit of a challenge. So I just thought of giving that context so that when you receive the different presentations, then you have some sort of a context, because the presentations will touch mainly around the technologies, how to introduce ICTs in rolling out service delivery to citizens. Some are focusing on governance matters, looking at project management methodologies. So we will then move into the actual presentations. I just want to get my documents. So we will first start with Apiwe Maqingwane presenting on the Crime Tech Tracker, which is a frequent pattern-based crime knowledge support for strategic community policing. And in terms of who Apiwe is, she is currently studying for the master's degree in computer science at the University of the Western Cape, and is a data science intern at Altron System. She's South African, enrolled in a STEM program at Nelson Mandela University, and she received a scholarship for her undergraduate degree at University of Western Cape. So each presenter has 15 minutes to present, and then we will take questions, and then we will get the next presenter. So Apiwe, over to you. We can encourage you and give a clap of hands. Which one is yours? The first one. The first one. Okay.
Thank you for the introduction. As they said, I'm Apiwe Matumbane from the University of the Western Cape. Very nervous. So the presentation will be based on a research titled The Crime Tracker, a frequent pattern-based crime knowledge support for strategic community policing. The outline that we will cover in this research is the introduction, the problem statement, the research focus and objectives, related work, methodology, results, discussion, and conclusion. Due to rapid increase in crimes in South Africa and limited resources, citizens of South Africa are in constant fear and traumatized, and victims are traumatized. And this has caused this to affect the economy of the country. This is why we need to assist police. We have created this research to assist police in finding ways to combat crime. The aim of this research is to develop a crime tracker system which uses a FP growth, which is a frequent pattern growth model to assist community policy in South Africa. The objective of this research is to create the system where users are able to see hotspot areas of crime and also to be able to generate frequent patterns of crime. So the data which we'll use for this research is the South African data from the SAPS. So as you know, there's been quite a lot of research on frequent patterns, such as using different algorithms, obviously, and the A priority, if you refer to table 1, on reference 9, there was an analysis of crime on the patterns for Kenyan, which used the A priori algorithm. And they used the MST approach. You're wondering what is an MST approach? An MST is a minimum support value approach, which we use when we want to prune the data. So we use only the data that will have influence on the results of generating the patterns. So for this, and you see the other research used the FP growth algorithm, and the FP growth algorithm is more of an improvement of the a priori algorithm. So for this research, for the MST approach, we use the mean support of the crime types, which we find on the data, and we use the floor. So the mean floor of the mean support value. And there are a lot of crime application systems in South Africa, namely the Crime Hub, the Crime Spotter, and the MySAP. They're all South African-based crime systems. And the Crime Hub, you are able to view crime trends, and the Crime Spotter, you are able to view crime hotspot, report crimes, and receive crime alerts. And the MySAP, you are able to report crimes and view crime trends. But for this particular system, we combine those functionalities and we are able to identify crime patterns using the frequent pattern growth. So the case study for this research is the Bellville, Western Cape. So now we're going to go in the methodology of generating the frequent patterns. So on table 1, we have a sample of the transactions, the transactions which are in a form of the years, are grouped in years. So as you can see, the items are the crimes which are within the data set. So for an example, I'll give you an example. If, for an example, from 2005 to 2006, rape was reported, robbery was then reported afterward, murder, shoplifting, theft, and burglary. So this is how we're gonna put the data, display the data in order to prepare and process the data so it is able to, we're able to generate the frequent patterns. And then the next step we need to do is find the frequency of the crime types. So how many times is that particular crime appear on the data? So for robbery, 5, the robbery had appeared 5 times within the item set, and then the rape 4 times, murder, and so on. And then we also assign a symbol to those particular crimes, because to save space, obviously. And then for the next step in the process, we need to find the MSV. So the MSV, using the process which we have stated here for the mean, the MSV, we find the mean, and we use the floor of the mean. And then we prune the data using the MSV. So if the item and its frequency is less than the minimum support value which we have obtained, then we drop the item set. But if the item set's frequency is greater than the minimum support value, we keep the item set. And then we obtain an ordered item set. So this ordered item set is the same item set, but we have eliminated the items, the crime types which are not needed within the data set. And we order them in a descending order. So the first crime with the highest frequency comes first, and with the following, and then the item set with the lowest frequency is is positioned at last. Sorry. And then from that step, we generate an FP3. So an FP3 is basically a path in which we use those item sets and we generate the frequent 3, like a path where there was robbery, there was rape, there was theft, there was murder, and there was burglary. So when generating this tree, if the item sets are unique, you add a new branch and you add the frequency to that branch which you add. So, but overall, the frequency of the FP3 that appears on the FP3 is equivalent to the frequency of the original item set in the beginning. So the nice thing about this algorithm, it uses the divide and conquer method of when generating the frequent patterns, unlike the a priori, which use the first breadth search. So from there, we go to table 5. So table 5, from the FP3, we generate the conditional pattern 3, which is basically the path in which you reach that particular crime type. So from robbery to rape, and then from robbery to rape, and then you take the frequency of rape. So in order for robbery to get to rape, it occurs in 4 occasions, and then so on to theft and murder and all that stuff. And then for the conditional frequent pattern tree, we take from the conditional pattern tree base and take similarities, and then we obtain the conditional FP tree. From the FP3, we then generate the frequent patterns, which is the actual path itself. And then this is the sample of some of the extracted frequent patterns which we have obtained from the SATS data set. So I'm going to go to 2011 to 2013. The sample pattern which we have obtained from our results was burglary at a non-residential premises and attempted murder. So when we analyze this pattern, is that if burglary at a non-residential premises occur, there's a high chance that attempted murder will occur. And then the advice that we would give to the users is that they should be aware of their surroundings, they should install more security systems. And now let's go to the crime tracker system. So the crime tracker system is the crime system which we will be developing. This crime system will have two main users, which is the community members and the admin. The administrator can be the police forum and the security companies, and the other members can be your tourist, can be you, and can be all the other users who have no administration rights. And then the users will have obviously shared functionalities, such as they will be able to view crimes, visualize crimes, sign in on the system, and receive crime alerts. But obviously, the admin will have their own unique rights, such as updating data. They will use their credentials, which they will be provided at work. So on figure 6, it shows like a clear idea how the patterns, the hotspot, or when a user reports the crime, it will appear on the map. And then the system is deployed on Heroku. It was developed, the front end was developed using HTML and CSS, and the back end, the data will be stored on MongoDB, and we use Python. So the results for the generating of the frequent patterns. We have noted that the runtime for generating the MSV was consistent when using the different years within the data set. But the MSV generating the, so the MSV size differs with the data set. So the more there are larger data is within the data set, then the higher the MSV value. And then to generate the frequent patterns, it's the same as well. It increases if the data is larger, it takes longer to generate the frequent patterns. And so the consistent runtime is directly proportional to the data size. So meaning that if the data set is more, then obviously it will take longer. And then in conclusion, so as we know that South Africa is facing a lot of challenges in their crime increasing. So this research is aiming to developing the system, which is a crime tracker system, which will help police combat crime. And we've used the stats SA data, and we use our case study as Belleville University. And the features of the system is that it will update the frequent pattern in real time, and also update the frequent pattern map in real time. And the aim is to assist in strategic decisions. And for future improvements, we are currently busy expanding the system, adding more features, and obviously polishing other functionalities. And thank you.
Thank you, Aphiwe. So as the audience is preparing their questions, I just want to check. So in terms of your system and your research, so how far are you with, have you already patented the system?
Yes, I have. I have patented, and I'm already improving it. So it is there, but it's obviously not used yet. So I am still developing it and improving it.
All right. Thank you. So we're going to now open the floor to questions from the audience. Any questions? Yes, Dr. Gugumer?
I just want to check, you said that you've already patented it, but you're still refining it. Have you got a test group? Is there a specific test group that is helping you to refine, for example, the SAPS in Belleville or a specific community forum? What is the geographic area where you are testing and refining it? Thanks.
No, okay. Thank you for the question. I haven't. Oh, sorry. Oh, thank you for the question. Initially, the research was based around Belleville, which is closer to UWC. But now I am aiming to expand the research in terms of South Africa and whole. So I haven't incorporated other companies like SAPS, and it's just an internal research at this point, but I am aiming to expand it.
Thank you. Okay. Then we'll come back to you.
Hello. Thank you for your presentation. I have a quick question, I think, about the future evolution of your system. It's following more or less what the lady before said. I mean, do you plan to include much more information, such as the specific location, the time, the period of the year, in order to have a better focused image or scenario concerning the different crimes? That means this happens only on summertime, in this location preferably, or in such kind of facilities and so on.
Okay, that's a good question. I didn't think that far, but I was planning to incorporate in terms of a specific area. Like, for an example, I cannot generate frequent patterns for the whole South Africa. I don't know how it makes sense. So I was thinking of only a specific area that you only view the patterns that apply to your area where you are located. So when you are reporting the crime, it does pick up your point of location, if you allow that. So, yes, I don't know if it answers your question. Yes.
Hi, Apio. Thank you for a beautiful presentation. I wanted to find out, you talk about Python, I can't remember the other two programs, that HTML and then the third one. So you program yourself, you review yourself. You don't have a third eye that have looked into it. So follow up to what you were saying. The reason for that is because if you match the two questions by the colleagues, it would help to have a different observer right there to show you a different eye and to advance it further, because you can say you are doing great on your own and it turns out that in fact there's more data that could be implemented into your program. Ne?
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you for the questions. Any more questions?
Hi. First, let me tell you, fascinating that you're dealing with such a complex topic.
Pardon?
That you're dealing with such a complex topic,
okay,
such a sensitive topic. So you are basically creating a tracking system for data entries. My question is, regardless of the topic, have you put together a verification process for those, for that data?
I didn't get your question. Can you please repeat that?
Do you have a verification process that actually checks that that data is reliable?
Oh, okay. So I don't have a data process that verifies that because, as you said, the topic was a bit broad, and the data that I used was the South African data, which was public for use. So maybe we could consider that, but at this point we are more on generating frequent pattern, and so users can get pattern crime alerts, basically. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Any more questions? Okay, my last question to you is, I mean, this is something that, you know, the South African government can use, specifically our Minister Becky Cele. So, I mean, what are your long-term plans? Is it research for the sake of research, or do you plan to commercialize it, get it adopted in government, you know?
At this point, it is still research. But future plans will obviously be, it has potential to become global, and it has potential in really being part of strategies that are implemented in South Africa to combat crime. So there are future plans for it, but yet now, at this moment, it's research.
Okay. Thank you. All the best. Once you're ready, I'll share my numbers with you.
You can share them now. Maybe the numbers might change.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Let's give up you another round of applause. So our next presenter is Themba Shozi. While he's getting his presentation up, so Themba conducts research in the development and implementation of architectural mechanisms by providing research to support the development of GWEA to improve the interoperability of government systems by the ICT innovation and research. His research interests are in the areas of software-defined networks, WAN, government ICT, IoT, blockchain, and digital transformation. Over to you, Themba. He's from the University of Zululand.
A very good morning to everyone. My name is Themba from the University of Zululand. Today I'm going to be presenting work which looks at blockchain for the public service industry in the sub-Saharan Africa. So this is actually an ongoing work to actually develop a fully fledged framework for the public sector. What we have discovered, or what we have realized as the University of Zululand, working with CETA and also the CSIR, which are my colleagues that we are working on this framework with, blockchain is implemented in the private sector, and it has taken traction up to a sense that the private sector is way ahead of our public sector. The public sector is still doing, I would say, the legacy stuff. Everything is still done the way it was done 10 years ago, and nobody sees a problem with that. There is no enough security of our information. There is no transparency of data that will allow citizens to actually conduct their services every day seamlessly. So the lack of these data sets or methodologies hinders the innovation or the advancement of technology in our South African markets. So blockchain would offer a potential to global investors to actually put in more resources in terms of our different types of industries, your retail industry, your health industry, and so forth. So what we were aiming to do on this portion of the entire research is to explore uses of blockchain in the public sector from other countries. So if you're looking at other countries, you're considering your South America, your Europe, basically it's a way of learning from others what they've implemented, what were their drawbacks, and how are they actually facing challenges in terms of implementing blockchain in the public sector. So we examine the primary applications that these countries are using, and we highlight relevant blockchain areas in order to discuss the lessons for Africa in order to determine or identify what we can use as a continent to be able to actually develop this particular framework. So after the analysis of these applications and a number of nations, these are the few that are highlighting what other countries have been able to actually achieve. One country that is a big example in comparison with South Africa is Estonia. Estonia got their freedom at the same time as South Africa. But South Africa is behind in a very alarming rate. So they are up to a point where in Estonia, 96% of the country is fully connected on the government Wi-Fi. Elderlies in Estonia, they get ICT training before getting their pensions so that they can be able to use the services without requiring somebody else to actually help them and actually rob them their money. Singapore has also even taken strides in their national cybersecurity research and development. Previously, I was at CETA working in the Research and Innovation Department. We found that as division that is serving the government, we have never deployed or actually provided any system in this country that is fully blockchain driven and that is providing services to South Africans. So what is this going to help us in the health industry? It can ensure the integrity of our medications. It can simplify health history. So what do we mean it can simplify health history? An example application is that I wouldn't have somebody to always look on papers whenever I go to the hospital. For example, I can put in my fingerprint and it can bring in all my medical records at once. And then I can have my medical records in any hospital in the country, in any medical facility in the country that I would actually require those services from them. And it's scalable as much as we would want. Smart contracts for the real estate industry. We can enhance data integrity in terms of the transactions, and we can actually attract more people to invest in real estate, knowing very well that the information or the data or the reliability of what they're investing in is actually secure and they can trust. The finance industry, we can be able to have more transparent, secure information, reducing financial operations, benefiting in terms of making foreign cash accessible. It's a lot. You can even speed the way we are processing our transactions. Our banks can actually do much better than what they are doing right now. Instead of waking up from your balance to zero and the bank will we're fixing the problem. The retail industry, it can prevent fraud and counterfeits by providing irrefutable digital records of that particular data, ensuring product authenticity. It can optimize rewards program. We won't have to carry all those cards we always have on our wallets. I always look at my mother. She'll have Clicks, she'll have Discam, she'll have... It's just a lot. Imagine just having my face coming to Clicks and it scans my face and all my rewards are on one system. That's what we're talking about when you're talking about blockchains. Education. Have you ever wondered, or isn't it annoying to you that whenever you're offered a new job, you always have to go certify your records, your ID, some people graduated in 2004, you don't even know where your undergraduate certificate is, but you have to produce all of that. What if there was just one system that I can log into and then share with every HR, just a unique code for a certain time frame, and they can be able to access my information, and I can be able to view who accessed my information, what are they using my information for? Because we always share that information with recruiters, but we really never know where it goes and who's keeping it, for what reason, what they're using it for. Those are the type of things that blockchain is going to be providing or can provide to our government in South Africa. But there is a worry, and this worry is also another problem that Estonia is facing right now. The citizens are complaining. Government has way too much control in their personal data. They know who you are, where you're from, where you're going, what information do you have, everything about you. So security concerns are there. But are those type of security concerns going to hinder us for progression in order for the country to explore technology that might be helpful to us? This can be even helpful to the concern of load shedding. ESCOM, we would actually know where our money is going and what they are doing with that, and be able to have control or transparency through that data. Blockchain is not only about cryptocurrency, but blockchain is about access, security, and actually ensuring that we are digitizing or simplifying our lives. So they can potentially disrupt various industries by addressing challenges like transparency and security, confidentiality, liquidity, and so on. So the digital governance in our country can actually help us to be able to manage all of this information that is disjoint throughout our lives, and be able to come into one system, be manageable in different types of industry, and be able to have more advanced or improved technology in our country and also in the continent itself. Thank you for your time.
Temba, for those thought-provoking inputs around the use of blockchain.
Yes.
But I think in terms of comparisons, I always like comparing similar things. So comparing South Africa and Estonia is not a good start, because South Africa has 60 million people, Estonia has 1.3 million. But anyway, yeah, I think in terms of adoption of these technologies in the country, the issue is around, there's a need to develop standards, and I think that's something that our state IT agency is currently doing, so that we can then be able to absorb all these technologies from different players, whether it's researchers, innovators, companies, etc. So yeah, I'll open the floor now to the audience. Anyone with a question for Temba? I can see you have a lot of questions, so don't be scared to ask. Maybe you can tell us your name and then ask your question.
Yeah, sorry. My name is Maria Eugenia. I'm from Buenos Aires. Oh, you didn't ask that. All right, my question. It's actually more like a comment. So I work for a blockchain technology company in London. We develop technology using blockchain, so we're not a crypto company. But it is true, right now we are developing with Philippines a self-sovereign identity or national implementation where citizens can enhance privacy through a centralized network, and the government will hold the credential management so they can actually enforce validation and certification, like government does. So I think that you are talking about the future, but it's not a far away future. That's my comment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other question? Yes.
Hello. Thank you for the great presentation. So the question that I've been working to the blockchain space. My name is Tandile.
Yes.
And I'm a blockchain developer. It's been 4 years now in the space. So I can see that you are actually pro for blockchain because of the benefits that it has, and more especially here in South Africa. But the question I would like to ask, based on the research, is that did you kind of like address as well what are the things that may hinder us from deploying these systems or using blockchains? For instance, one of the prominent thing that anyone can think of is load shedding. So we won't have servers running, we won't have a network if all the lights are go off. So did you kind of like address those issues in the research?
Generally speaking towards this particular research, the main ideas I've said in the beginning, we are trying to develop a framework that is looking into all of those type of problems that you are facing as a country in order for us to transition smoothly towards the implementation of blockchain in our government or in Africa as well. There are problems that as certain divisions in the IT industry that we cannot generally just address immediately or cannot have a direct impact towards. Load shedding is a national problem. if ever we would want to implement such technologies to different departments, then the recommendation should come that every government department should have backup power running 24 hours in order for us to take advantage of those particular things. So in a realistic sense, that is something that is far-fetched. But if ever such issues or such problems are there and they're going to take a long time to address, we're still going to be talking about the same topic 10 years later, that we still want to implement blockchain in South Africa. I don't know if that answers what you're actually looking at. But another part is that acceptance in our country. It comes from the hierarchy of the political leaders to people who run public organizations in the government, to even the ground level of experts who are actually implementing or developing the technology. So the acceptance from moving away from the old technology to the new technology has hindered us from progressing for a long time. So that is why we're working with organizations like CETA and the CSIR, who are actually firm in research towards the development of this framework for the government.
Okay, there's a question there.
Yes.
I recognize you.
So again, Alfredo,
yes,
from Italy. Two quite quick question, much more concerning in general e-government. So first of all is, do you have any concern about the fact that some governments, or governments in general, will refer to key players in order to implement in general technologies such as cloud computing or blockchains or many other things? This on one side. On the other side is let's see, about the use of such data and the risk to have, for instance, blockchains that will provide a number of services, but in case of failure of the system, in case of malfunction, what will happen? Is there any plan B to receive your certificate, or as it happens nowadays, if there's a blackout, we are basically back to the Stone Age?
Well, we are trying to put in place a lot of ideas or a lot of implementations that will actually help us. That is why we're trying to learn from countries like Estonia, who've been doing this for a number of years. Because whenever they experience blackouts, they have their servers are not only within their country. They have backup servers in Canada that they are working with Canada. So whenever there's shutdown or there's breach on their system, the recovery point is in Canada and another recovery point is in New Zealand. So they have put in place those type of countermeasures in case something happens. So that is also parts and parcels to what we can be able to actually achieve. So if ever as the sub-Saharan region in Africa, each country would actually share servers or actually share resources, that we would actually have our recovery point in Namibia, we would have our recovery point in Mozambique, our recovery point in Zimbabwe. If ever we are affected, our neighbors can be able to help immediately. It's not a complete solution, but it's something better than employing a minister of electricity. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right. Let's take 2 questions and then you can respond to both of them at once so that we close. Okay, go ahead.
My name is Okane. Thank you very much for your presentation. I just want to really raise a concern in here, whether you're going to consider this.
Yes.
All countries in Africa are not democratic. As an individual in non-democratic government, are you willing to provide everything about yourself? Does that really raise a concern? Let us consider it in terms of organization. Not all organization has got your personal interest at heart. Do you really consider it is okay for an insurance company to have a look at your medical records? does that really raise a concern? Who have got access to this data? Who has got access, limitation? That is a big concern in terms of it. And the other concern is, what happens if this is hacked, say, change it to some degrees? Okay? People might really take my pictures and just do something else's. Those are some of the concerns. So there are really big questions that really raises using a concentrated data when you really have those ones. How do we really resolve that one? I can see the advantage you are raising, but there are a lot of concerns as well. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Please give the mic to the gentleman behind you.
I'm Nati Chabalala from Shift Control Solutions. I would like to help your solution there in terms of servers, just to deploy it on the cloud. Any of the cloud providers would have data centers around Africa. One of them can be Huawei Cloud. They have data centers throughout the continent, and their recovery point objective is 99.95%. I'm not promoting them, but you will be able to answer that darkness question.
Yes. Thank you very much. I think both questions are in relation in terms of the concern who has control of our information. For example, this is before blockchain in our country. The same concern is there. How many of you downloaded the app, the DSI Events app, that shows you the program today? Did you read the terms and conditions? You connected to free Wi-Fi. So the problem is still there. We don't know who's controlling that Wi-Fi and has access to our information. Blockchain is also trying to provide a solution, but those problems will always be there. Somebody will still see something. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or if you are over 18, you can display that attribute that is verified by the certificate authority, the government, who approves that you are over 18, and the verifier can check only that attribute without getting access to any of your personal information. And that is because of the merkalization of data that blockchain can support. That it's a very technical issue, but I think that your question, it's key for ethical implementation of new technology. But the truth is that it's being reviewed and it's being developed, and the technology to solve those problems for this distribution and decentralization of identity, it's here. We just need to embrace it, and it's being implemented. I want to sing something now.
In conclusion, I would say we would never achieve 100% security, because if ever recovery points are not in the form of data centers or on cloud, then it means some other countries controlling that cloud resource. What access do they have? How much of our information they can view, when and how? So somebody will always know something. So rather, let's move, deal with some of the problems along the way while we are advancing our technology at the same time. Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Temba. Yeah, I think the issue of ethics is quite important, especially for the African continent, because we have all these technologies coming in, and we're expected to just consume, but we then have to adapt it to our own environment. And I think the issue of ethics needs a whole standalone conference on its own. Thank you. Our next presenter is Dr. Silma Kukemur. As she prepares her presentation, her profile is that she holds a PhD degree in IT from Nelson Mandela University and an MBA from Northwest University. She has authored and published several peer-reviewed journal articles and international conference papers, as well as co-authoring a book on smart cities, smarter cities for a bright, sustainable future, a global perspective, which was published by the Public Technology Institute and Items International, Washington, DC. Selma is a financial system and management consultant and adjunct faculty member of Melpark Education. Thank you, Selma, over to you.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Good afternoon, Chair and colleagues, friends. Thank you for the time that I can spend with you, which I appreciate very much. I would like to start by saying that academics are actually my hobby and not my full-time career. My full-time career, as you heard, is I've combined public sector finance, risk management, and IT, and I spend my time trying to improve service delivery across the country, which I'm sure all of you will agree is a wicked problem. There's not one single solution to the service delivery challenges that we are experiencing, and there's not a simple solution. We've got to combine different solutions, and in my efforts I try and instill ethics and I try and implement IT. Now, one of the projects that I did conduct in the period 2015-17 was to implement a standard chart of accounts in all the municipalities in the country. For those of you that are not in South Africa or from South Africa, there are 257 municipalities in the country. They use 11 different financial systems, and all of the systems currently have exactly the same data structure or standard chart of accounts, as we call it. And there are also 25 what we call non-delegated municipalities, and I'm going to speak mostly about them today. They are our 8 metros and our 17 secondary cities, which are the bigger municipalities in the country. The others are delegated, so they report to the provincial treasuries. The non-delegated municipalities and then also the metros report directly to National Treasury. And in the period 2015 to 2017, while they were implementing the standard chart of accounts, I had the opportunity to work with all the municipalities and to observe their project management maturity levels. And it is based on this that I'm revisiting that research from 2017. Let me just get my presentation to move on. Sorry, I don't think this thing is working very well. Don't worry. No problem. Thank you. So I don't think I have to expand on the current situation in municipalities in the country. We all know the crisis we are experiencing in the city of Tshwane and Parys in the Free State with water and sanitation issues, and very few of us understand the connection between the water quality issues and, for example, load shedding or our electricity issues. Just think for a moment, how do we purify water in South Africa? We need electricity. And when the electricity is off, the water purification works don't work. We also need electricity to fill the pressure tanks and the reservoirs. So when there's no electricity, obviously it's going to have an impact on sanitation and water as well. Think of refuse removal. Few of you have probably visited landfill sites. We are running out of space at our landfill sites. But horror upon horror, the landfill sites have become home to many people who actually live on the landfill sites permanently with their children, and very often also with aged people looking after the children on the landfill sites. We use the roads regularly and we complain about the condition of our roads and infrastructure in general. And while we are sitting here expanding on first world infrastructure, i.e. technology, we don't think about the availability of infrastructure and the condition of infrastructure across the country. Do we have the infrastructure to support all the technologies that we are punting at this conference? Then we also have environmental management issues and healthcare issues, which I'm not going to expand on further. But all of them together, a wicked problem, something that we have to think of creatively and innovatively to solve, or to at least address, if not completely solving. Now in 2017, as I mentioned, I was part of a project to implement standard chart of accounts in the municipalities, and at that point in time I researched 25 municipalities. Saying that, only 17 participated in the research, and in this research, there were 6. Now, what spurred this is in 2022, COGTA KZN did a skills audit of all the municipalities in KZN. They found councillors as well as administrators that are in need of basic reading and writing skills. They identified that 100% of the councillors in KZN are in need of improved IT skills, and a large portion of municipal employees also indicated they don't have sufficient IT skills to use the applications that are running in the respective municipalities. They also found that most of the councillors and a large portion of the administrators needed project management skills. Now, once I heard those statistics, I thought to myself, perhaps I should look what happened in the 17 municipalities that I was investigating in 2015-2017. Has there been an improvement, and how has that affected their service delivery? And what I did, I went back to the municipalities. As I mentioned, only 6 of them were prepared to participate in this round, and I looked at financial performance as well as their service delivery performance. A large portion of their performance, I used the audit reports, and I also used their service delivery reports to look at an external party evaluating the performance and not them evaluating their own performance. But they did identify their project management skills, and I then combined that as my research. I just want to see if I can move this on. Now, I have been investigating the ongoing challenges in municipalities. As I said, that is my career. I work with many municipalities, and I've also been involved in ERP implementations in small, medium, and large municipalities across the country. I looked at the 17 municipalities I used in 2017, of which 6 responded. 4 responded to questionnaires which I distributed, and 2 of them were not prepared to answer the questionnaires, however, were prepared to have informal interviews with me related to the questionnaires. So in those cases, I used the questionnaires for a structuring of my interviews with them so that I could get comparable information from those 2 municipalities. The respondents were divided into 2 different groups. First of all, as I mentioned, I studied the audit outcomes of the municipalities that were participating. Please bear in mind that an audit outcome is not necessarily a report on your service delivery capacity or your actual service delivery achievements. It only tells you that what is contained in your financial statements is a true reflection of your current financial position. So it, to a large extent, it checks on the format of the financial statements and to a certain extent the content. And it doesn't mean that you're very good at service delivery. It does mean that you're very good at reporting though. It does indicate your financial position to users that know how to use the financial statements and how to actually read the financial statements. And then also it provides a perceived or a reported level of service delivery and is not necessarily aligned with what the community is experiencing in the municipality. But it is an objective benchmark that can be used. And this is what it looks like. Now, there you've got on the left-hand side municipalities A to F, and that is to anonymize them. However, people that know the municipalities very well, reading this table, will probably be able to put at least 3 or 4 names to those municipalities. In 2017, you can see the project management maturity levels, very low. Municipality A, level 2, B, C, D, E, and F, level 1, and that is on a scale of 1 to 5. And then in 2022, you will see a marginal improvement in A from 2 to 4, in D from 1 to 3, and in E from 1 to 2. Now, the ticks under audit, I've taken the audit reports from 2018 to 2021. Municipality A achieved 4 clean audits, Municipality B, 4 clean audits, and Municipality C, 4 clean audits but with findings. So clean audit means without findings, but with findings means there were matters that were emphasized or highlighted by the Auditor General as needing attention. D, also a clean audit. E was financially unqualified in the first year, and then 3 clean audits. Financially unqualified and clean audits, not exactly the same thing. Okay, and then in the last municipality, adverse findings, qualified finding, and again, qualified finding. Now, bear in mind that this is not necessarily a representation of their service delivery. Now, on the service delivery, in the first municipality, there were limited issues related to service delivery, and the way that I measured it was I looked at newspaper coverage of service delivery issues. Obviously, I spoke to the municipalities, the administrators that participated in the research, and I also spoke to provincial and national treasury as well as COGTA to get information on the actual service delivery. In the second municipality, we have major issues and regression reported after this research. Service delivery failures and financial challenges have been uncovered at this municipality since I actually conducted the research. In the second municipality, there are repeated findings, procurement and revenue collection issues. There are service delivery failures, non-compliant and failing IT systems, critical vacancies not being filled, and no consequences being applied to people that are not doing their thing. Municipality D is one of the top performing municipalities in the country across a broad spectrum of services, included financial and also included their governance and their risk management. Municipality E, well run, although they only provide limited services, and I can explain this to you without indicating which municipality this is. They are a district municipality, so they do not have the same services as a metro or a local municipality, and that is why they only have limited services that they offer, but they are well run. Now, because it's a district municipality, what I found there is very often in the district there are protests because of service delivery issues. But if you go and analyze those protests, it relates to services that the local municipalities are not offering, and then it looks as if the protests very often are targeting the district municipality, but it's actually based on issues at the local municipalities. And then municipality F, a regulatory and legal non-compliance, a leadership crisis, lack of controls, limited revenue collection happening, unauthorized and irregular expenditure, service delivery failure, and also a failing IT system. Now, my question to myself as a practitioner and to you as researchers is this: should we be spending a lot of money on first world and leading technology if we have this situation in our municipalities? And should we not be focusing on upskilling them, addressing the service delivery issues, and assisting them to improve in what they are doing? I'm currently involved in a very big ERP implementation in one of the municipalities of the country, and I'm asking myself, is that money well spent or is it not? Should we be implementing all of these things at a huge cost? But as I said, it's a wicked problem, because technology is actually one of the ways in which we can improve service delivery if we know how to do and what to do with it. Just want to move on here. Now, my recommendation in terms of project management methodologies, and in another article I wrote, I did actually relate the benefits of formal project management methodologies to improved service delivery, so I'm not going to cover it here at present, is that if we do adopt formal project management methodologies, including a project management unit that is competent and a project management office that does the administration of the project management, then I believe that we can bring a portion of governance and a portion of risk management into service delivery. And what I am advocating here is not only for ERP implementations. We hear about municipalities that are unable to spend their capital budgets, that are unable to spend their money on infrastructure upgrading and infrastructure improvement. If we can bring project management methodologies into municipalities, I believe that we can spend better on our capital projects. We can improve the delivery of project management across our different services, and we can make a difference. I'm sure that if we can implement a formal closure procedure of projects in municipalities where we actually review what we did implement, what we didn't implement, what were the shortcomings, the lessons learned, and how can we improve in the next project that we implement, we are going to see an improvement. Now, just from my financial research, to touch on the formal closure, I find that a lot of municipalities embark on capital projects, but they never actually close down the project. And the reason, therefore, is the moment you close down a capital project, it moves over to operational expenditure to maintain it and to run it. And if they have the capital, very often a grant and a conditional grant or a subsidy that they receive, they don't always receive operational money to maintain the asset. So what they do is they keep the I can see some people nodding their heads. They keep the capital project open and they keep spending and spending and spending on the capital project to maintain the asset after they've actually implemented it, instead of handing it over to a line department to maintain and then obviously to incur operational expenditure. So if you're not in that situation, you don't understand the problem. We need closer involvement and cooperation of the end user and technical and supporting line departments to get our service delivery sorted. If we have input from the user of the services that we are offering as municipalities, and here, what are your expectations, what are your needs, how best can the municipalities serve your purposes, I think we're going to start ticking some boxes. And then, as I already mentioned, with the closure of projects, if the technical and supporting line departments are more involved in the implementation of projects, both IT projects and capital projects, and they know what to expect, and during the implementation we train them to operate and to maintain the assets that we are providing, I also think we are going to have better service delivery. Then elevating the role of the steering committees, improved oversight and governance, and regular internal audit reviews. Obviously that together with consequence management. Preparing the budget according to projects, organizing service delivery and municipal activities as projects are one of the ways that a person could consider to improve service delivery. So if you run every budget item according to a project, you've got a plan, you've got a responsible person, you've got deliverables, and you tick it off as you go, we're probably going to get closer to service delivery than we currently are. And then regular performance reviews and reports with consequence management to make sure that we are actually performing and we are actually doing what we are supposed to do and what we planned to do. And then finally, proactively managing the project business case, the strategy and the benefits, making sure they're realized, but also that they are aligned and that we are delivering what the community needs and what they want and not what we think we should be delivering. Few will argue that South Africa is deeply troubled and on a steady decline at present. I heard someone mention the electricity earlier in one of the presentations, as witnessed amongst others in our municipalities. And it's more visible in our municipalities purely because they're closer to the community. As I mentioned, this is a wicked problem. Project management maturity levels alone is not going to solve the problem. IT technology alone is not going to solve the problem. But then on the other hand, please don't beat the donkey while it's already burdened and lying in the dust. Let's rather help up the donkey. Let us rather help the municipalities and the government at large through technology and also through skills development to improve service delivery across the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kukemura. This is quite interesting piece of work, and I think it talks to the real challenges on the ground. And I think mostly within government, you find that we fund projects and we are supposed to do oversight, but you find that the project manager hasn't even been to a site. So I think this methodology would help, but also layering it with digital transformation as well will help, where if you as a project manager, your teams go to sites and they take screenshots of actual pictures of what's happening and load it on the system, whatever, that could help quite a lot, because you find that, when we contract with whether it's our agencies or companies, we sign contracts, and then the expectation is that when they give you a report, you must pay them, whereas there needs to be oversight that takes place by the oversight manager. But thank you for that. Any questions from the floor? Don't know whether to say silence means concern.
I think it's a concerned silence.
All right, thank you very much. Let's give Dr. Kukamure a round of applause. Our next presenter is Sinyeki Marebane. As he comes over and prepares his presentation, Sinyeki Marebane received the Master of IT from Monash University in Melbourne, Australia in 2005. He has worked as a software and billing engineer in the telecoms industry. He is currently serving as a lecturer and academic manager of the Computer Science Department in the ICT faculty of Tshwane University of Technology. His research interests are in ethics of computing, data science, and machine learning. He has authored research papers in the areas of software engineering, ethics, and machine learning. Over to you, Sinyeki.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks, Chair, for the good introduction. My topic, as is displayed on the screen, is analyzing selected South African e-government failures through the theory of unintended consequences. As we have heard from the beginning of this conference, there's been a lot of talk about integration of technologies, adoption, usage, and I see colleagues coming up with very good solutions or suggestions that are technology-based. And that simply tells us that the usage and adoption of software is actually increasing. Last night, I was checking the stats online. I realized that from 2016, the global overview in terms of the revenue generated from software was 421 billion, that is in US dollars, and 2025 is predicted to be around 738 billion USD. And coming back home locally, is predicted that in 2028 it will be around 3.01 billion USD. So you can see how much software is being used. And because software plays a very important role in our lives, and we are becoming more dependent on it, believing that it's helping us in terms of accessing information and maybe services as well. Government has jumped to the floor. It's also adopting the use of software, and software is becoming an integral part of e-government systems. Simple, very close example that we have, we all know what happened in 2020. There was COVID-19, and what happened is that we were all actually, because we were in a lockdown, somehow we were supposed to communicate, access services, and so forth. So there was a serious acceleration in terms of adoption and upscaling of the usage of software technologies, mainly to help deal with the disaster and also to maintain business continuity in our operations. So, but we also need to know that software can also make us vulnerable. So for us to say the software is successful, we know that there are requirements that has to be stated as to what we expect as the clients of the software. Technically, they have the software to behave in a particular way. But on the other side, we know that the software will have impact on people. Therefore, it also has to demonstrate some ethical fitness. And it is more important for government systems to demonstrate that because of the wider reach that the government has on the e-government users, the citizens, the foreign nationals, and others that the government is serving. Because if there is such a lack of ethical fitness of the software systems, we know what negative impacts will suffer, and it will even be worse if that software is part of managing disaster, because that will mean the impacts will even be felt after the disaster has occurred. And when you look into literature, it's unfortunate that the ethical challenges of software are a continuing torment on society. People talk about ethics in artificial intelligence and so forth and so forth. And some researchers suggest that to deal with this, we need to have ethics-aware mechanisms in software engineering. It doesn't matter what domain it is, whether it's in AI or whatever, but as long as there's involvement of software development, we need mechanisms to ensure that the software developed is aligned with ethics. Another very critical point is that besides having the mechanisms, we also need to look at what we have in the development space, analyze the available data to check if there's ethicality in terms of developing software. And this is what gave rise to this kind of research. We are going to look at the South African case study. As I mentioned earlier, in 2020, we had COVID-19. And as part of mitigation, the government sat down and realized that there's a need for a social relief package. And the president announced a package of about 500 billion USD, 500 billion rands, to deal with the COVID-19. Amongst other things that were supposed to be addressed was the purchasing of food parcels to assist the needy, to supply new social grants and augment the already existing social grants, and also pay relief to employees and employers whose income were affected by the lockdown, and also the procurement, emergency procurement of PPE and other related stuff. So it was a number of things that were supposed to be procured. And to do that, the government was using their e-government systems. Like we know, there's a system for disbursements of social grants, for UIF, and so forth and so forth. But however, later on, reports emerged about the incorrect distribution of the funds. There was a big public outcry. There was also reports in the media. And one report that is standing out on this is the Auditor General reports. There were about 3 special reports and 1 media statement that was released about how these funds were used and what were the problems regarding the distribution of the funds. So that is what this study is trying to analyze. So we all know the function of government, besides policy, actually policy is to anticipate. Government needs to anticipate. That's why they anticipated that people will suffer. Therefore, we need to make money aside to provide money for the about 500 billion rands to support the relief. And they decided that they're going to use systems to do that. But on the other hand, we know that the systems that are developed by software engineers. And apart from having technical skills to develop systems, software engineers are expected and they are bound by the code of ethics to ensure that, or to commit to making the analysis, the design, the implementation and support of software to be a beneficial and respected profession. So the question is, did that happen when the systems were reconfigured or upgraded or integrated to make sure that they can be able to deliver that package? Amongst other things, to make this a respected profession, public concern, public safety is very important. Public interest. We develop software putting public interest in mind. So what we are trying to do in this study, we are analyzing these reports from the Auditor General by applying the theory of unintended consequences, mainly to determine the failures, if there are failures from the systems from the perspective of software engineering ethics, so that we can be able to highlight those challenges and also provide a scholarly reference. As I indicated earlier, it's a case study. We have extracted our data from the Auditor General's reports, which are augmented by the reports from the Parliamentary Monitoring Group. We are interpreting what is in there by using this theory. And when you use this theory, it requires that you look at the factors, which can be the actions that led to the problems, whether it can be ignorance, it can be ideological blindness. And we also have to determine that the action that was taken, was it a purposive action? Was it just an informal thing? And lastly, we must check if there's existence of causal imputation, meaning are we able to attribute the consequences to the specific actions that we have identified. Right, and when we look at the reports, there's a lot that we have found to have gone wrong. For example, there was double dipping up to 141 million. What does that mean? It means people managed to get money from SASSA while they are also employed by the government, and they also managed to claim money from UIF. There was also underpayment. There was overpayments for 10.2 million, and you can see the underpayments was up to 250 million. There was also duplicate payments, and there was a lot of wrongful payments close to R1 billion. And unfortunately, that also led to the deprivation of legitimate beneficiaries because they were rejected. And in terms of procurement, there was overpricing. A simple thing like a mask, which can cost about R3, was billed 100 Rand, cases of 500 Rand for a mask, something like that. And yet systems were there in place. But what is the cause? What led to the system to behave like that? That is the question. Now, when we look at the causes, number one, the systems lacked proper input validation controls. A simple thing of ensuring that when a certain figure is entered is correct, according to the reports, that was lacking in the systems. And what is even worse is the incorrect calculations that were performed by the system. If a person makes a claim, it doesn't matter the time the claim is made. The system will go back to the date that the promulgation of that fund was made and make a calculation and pay you the money, undeservingly so. And the other problem was the lack of integration of government systems. Colleagues earlier have alluded that a government keeps data about us. Our information is kept by the revenue services, it's kept by Home Affairs and many other government departments. But according to the reports, people were able to make claims and their information was not properly verified against the existing databases, to an extent that even foreign nationals that did not deserve to get the money were able to claim and get the money from the government. I'm not being xenophobic, I'm just saying what is in the auditor's reports, and please understand me. Please speak into the mic. Oh, sorry. Thank you. And what the other big problem is that people were able to claim money from the systems in the pretext of being directors of companies that did not exist. And there were a lot of invoices that were paid and they could not, I mean, a lot of payments that were made which could not be traced to a claim or an invoice on the system. So that's how much the systems bled money. All right. So if we have to analyze this according to the theory, the first question that we have to ask is that, was this really a purposive action, the implementation of the e-government systems? And we find that indeed it's a purposive action. It was the implementation of a social policy to provide relief to the citizens. And that is documented. We're not speculating. And for software to be implemented in government, I believe everybody knows that there are processes to be followed. So we take it that it's a purposive action. It was not an accident. Going to the next question, are the failures resulting from the factors that I alluded to earlier? For example, was it an error of judgment? Was it blindness? Was it immediacy? And when you analyze, you find actually the failures are resulting from that. I mean, if you have a developer who is there to make sure that the data that is entered correctly must be controlled and it's not there, a system to be deployed has to be tested, and it ends up making errors like this. You ask yourself questions. And in one of the in my paper, I also raised the issue of the skills and capacity, but one reviewer said, no, you are being emotional. It's not, the paper is not about skills. But when you read the theory, it says, in order for you to anticipate the basis, you must have knowledge. And if you don't have knowledge, how are you going to anticipate that the system is going to work fine? So lastly, is there existence of causal imputation? Well, according to the reports, it's not easy to tell that this action led to the loss of this money and so forth and so forth. But you are able to see that the losses of the money is due to ignorance by management or the developers or whoever is involved. So, Bosman says South Africa's e-government model is actually a success. But when you look at the cases that we have analyzed, the opposite is true. So, although what we have seen here appears to be technical, it's still ethical. I mean, if you have a weak compromised control on a system, it's a result of poor design or poor implementation. And failure to integrate the systems properly, poor coding, insufficient testing, is all aligned to ethics. So, and that resulted in government losing lots of money. People that were supposed to benefit did not benefit, and unscrupulous claimants did benefit from the systems. So, this suggests that there might be a possibility of lack of ethical frameworks in the implementation of government systems, and the losses are huge. So we recommend that the framework must include there must be a framework that include ethical risk identification and impact assessment in order to prevent unwanted consequences. Because if this does not happen, what is going to happen? This might discourage people from adopting e-government, the citizens, and this can undermine government's efforts on digital transformation. So as a way forward, we suggest that further studies be conducted by triangulating the data from more reports, maybe doing comparative studies, and also doing empirical studies to corroborate the findings and the application of this theory, because this study we just analyzed existing reports. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I make my comments, any questions from the floor? I think we can take one or two questions. Okay, from my side, I think this links in well with Dr. Kukemura's presentation. It's about the lack of project management, sort of implementation of project management methodologies or project management offices, because it's about, you know, proper planning and monitoring. And in one of your challenges, you mentioned the issue of ethics, etc. But for me, key to all of this is lack of integration of systems, because on the issue of social grants is that the government employees, they belong on the PESAL system, and the social grant system is different. They are not integrated. Hence, there was no one who was able to pick up that these people are receiving social grants. So the key thing is the integration of systems, which is something that we need to work on as government. And also the issue of legacy systems, you know, government using old systems. So there's a need to modernize the different systems within different government departments. But that's just my input. Thank you. Any more questions? Let's give Dr. Moshe, then Temba.
Thank you very much, Moshe Masonta with the CSIR. I think yourself and the previous speaker, Dr. Kukemura, spoke about skilling, you know, training. I think to me, it sounds easy to put it as let's skill, let's train. But based on the experience in attending some of the government KPIs and planning, you find that budgets for skilling, for training, go back because some of the government or municipal officials, they are not prepared to take this skilling. So until when are we going to keep on saying, let's reskill, whereas there's no uptake by the people to get those skills? I'm not sure. That is it a easy way out? That's why maybe your reviewers were like, it's emotional when you just say skill, reskill or training. So what is the best way maybe to address this part of saying, instead of just saying, let's reskill, and even maybe the previous speaker, how do we address the uptake of those offering of training?
Okay. From what I have looked in literature, there's two things. The first one is the issue of the training of software engineers. The focus mostly is on providing them with technical skills, because we already know the curriculum, what should go into developing a computer scientist or a software engineer. And there are bodies like IEEE and ACM that are providing guidelines on the development of the curriculum. And professional development is one of the items on the list of competencies that software engineers or computer scientists must have. And if you look under that professional development, it includes ethics. So it is there. We have also conducted a study to check if software engineers are aware that they have ethical responsibility. And they have confirmed they do have it. And we confirmed we have conducted another study to check if there are processes in place where they work to ensure that there's ethical adherence. It's been communicated, but in terms of implementation, there's nothing from management that requires them to, when they submit their software requirements, their coding, to prove that they have followed ethical principles. So if it's not required, they won't do it. They'll do what is required. And we all know software engineering is pressure intensive, timelines and so forth and so forth. So they focus on delivering, and sometimes we forget that this software is going to impact negatively. It might impact negatively on others. And what can be the unintended consequences that will come out of using this software? So the skills, the knowledge is there. Well, because they say there's skill, there's knowledge, there's attitude, they make competency. Maybe the knowledge is there, but the how part of it, which is the skill, is a problem. And if you look at ethics, it's more on the attitude.
Thank you. Temba, quickly.
I just want to follow up on Dr. Masonte's question. Aren't we putting our country at risk by upskilling criminals? He was stealing while the system was disintegrated, and we are upskilling him so that he can steal on newer secured systems. Why can't we just arrest and demote? Why are we upskilling criminals? If I stole money when the system was still a traditional old system, now I have advanced stealing skills. Why are we upskilling criminals? I just don't get it.
Yeah, we can have that discussion over lunch. I think if you can bear with us, we were supposed to finish at 12:30, so if you can give our last presenter a chance. Abilo, he's from CSIR. He studied electronic engineering, and he focuses his research on human language technologies. He's from the Human Language Technologies Research Group at the CSIR, and is going to talk about the role of voice computing in digital service delivery. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, I'm part of the Voice Computing Research Group at the CSIR, and we focus on various human language technologies, research therein, and development of these, and localizing them to our languages. So the goal of my talk is to create interest in voice computing technologies and the possible value it can have in digital service delivery and government service delivery. So I'm just going to give some background on the on digital service delivery and human language technologies. Then I'm going to expand a bit on the three main human language technologies that we are working on at the CSIR in our group. Some of the benefits that we think it can provide, and especially in government services. A small example of, so that one can get a better idea of what I'm trying to get to. Improved citizen engagement, and a conclusion. So the e-government services goes about enhancing accessibility. So that is accessibility from citizens to access services, digital services, either through their cell phones, tablets, or computers. Efficiency by reducing paperwork, manual handling of documents, and just reducing processing time. And then also transparency by government publishing documents, publishing policies, and giving citizens access to these. So the whole voice computing interaction with e-government services is on the government to citizen level. So where government provides information or services to citizens, and citizens communicate or access the services from government. So in voice computing, there are three main technologies: automatic speech recognition, natural language processing, and text-to-speech. And I'm just going to go into a bit of background or depth into each of these. So automatic speech recognition basically converts spoken language into written text. So we use various machine learning algorithms to analyze and transcribe audio data. And there are various applications for this technology, for example, voice assistants, voice-controlled services or devices, transcription services, and then you can think of how these applications can be incorporated into government services. So it's utilized in, for example, call centers, service centers, to transcribe and analyze customer interactions. You can use it in voice search applications. For example, if we record these talks and you want to search a specific term that you heard. And yeah, it's leveraged in many different applications. So I want to make an analogy from how we process data or how humans communicate and these three technologies. So if one would think of our hearing, then that's basically speech recognition, getting the information into our brains, where natural language processing will play the role of your brain. And it's a technology that that interacts or assists with interaction between humans and computers. So NLP enables machines to understand what we say and to extract intent from what we say and the data from what we are saying. There are various algorithms to analyze and process text, to extract meaning, patterns, insights, and I think everyone knows some of the applications of NLP, like translation, sentiment analysis, text summarization, and recently question answering systems like, for example, ChatGPT. NLP also plays important roles in voice assistants and chatbots, and it's also used to do sentiment analysis. For example, with the upcoming elections next year, there are many groups in South Africa that use, for example, Twitter to extract sentiment analysis and then to try and predict what people are thinking of different parties, what people are thinking. So there are many applications of NLP. And the next technology, basic technology, is text-to-speech. So that would be the how we talk, if one thinks of our communication. It's the technology that converts written text into spoken form. So it uses synthetic voices which are created from recorded data usually, and these voices can then be used to create new speech from any written text, any digital text. It's used in various applications, for example, for print disabled, for people who, or visually impaired people who need to read something, then the TTS system can read it to them. It can be used in voice assistance, navigation, when you use Google to find your way, audiobooks, early literacy applications, and accessibility tools. So some of the benefits of voice computing is enhanced user experience. So that is how we interact with technology and machines. It's much more natural for us to use to use speech and to get speech back when we interact with machines, because that's the way we interact with humans, with other people. So it also allows for hands-free operations, like, for example, let's say you are working on a complex system, you need to access a manual to describe some of those things, then you can visualize the system in front of you while getting that information through speech. You can get efficiency by it streamlines processes, reduces paperwork. You can automate a lot of processes using voice computing technologies. You can increase engagement. For example, it's more interactive, immersive. People like talking to machines if the quality is good enough. Like, for example, ChatGPT shows us now, if the interaction quality is good, then people like to use it. So the application of voice computing in government services can be broad. For example, I spoke about an example yesterday, just in agriculture, sending information by phone, phoning rural farmers and telling them what crop prices are, or what weather patterns to expect, and how. And it's such a simple thing, but to just use a phone and have a machine phone them and talk to them and give them this information. So it can streamline a lot of processes. You can get faster response times if you phone up a system and you ask for something simple and get an immediate response instead of waiting for someone to answer the phone. You can optimize resource allocation. For example, simple interactions that machines can handle can be given to machines, and more complex interactions can be allocated to people who need some other background in the domain in order to handle the problem. It can enhance service delivery by offering personalized and intuitive guidance through voice. And voice assistants can provide, for example, step-by-step instructions to access various systems, government systems. So I want to get to this example. This is a simple example that, for example, a citizen phones into a system to ask information on how to renew their driver's license. So a lot of government websites, you will find FAQs, so frequently asked questions, which they can very simply be transformed into a question answering system like this example, where you then can phone in, for example, and ask a question to the system. The speech recognition converts that speech to text. It gets transformed, or the intent is extracted by natural language processing. Then the answer is found, a conversational response is created, then a text response, and that text response can then be converted back to speech. So behind the scenes it's quite complex, but for a person interacting, it's such a natural way of asking for advice or asking for a service or how to access a government service. So voice computing can improve all, our belief, can improve all citizen engagement of e-government services through simplifying complex procedures, personal guidance through various procedures, like, for example, how to apply for SASA, or there are so many examples of this, of how you can use this. And then one of the big benefits of using this type of technology is you can lower language barriers. We've got 11 official languages, and then now our 12th one as well. And it is it is a lot simpler if one applies technology. One can reach a much broader audience of citizens and give a lot more people access to basic services. So it basically creates equitable access to information. So yeah, in conclusion, I think voice computing can revolutionize, has the possibility to revolutionize e-government services. Speech recognition, language processing, and text-to-speech can empower people and provide efficient access to these services. And then I want to play some samples. I don't think many people have heard examples of text-to-speech in South African languages, so I'm just going to play 3 samples for you.
Thank you for your time and patience.
Enkosi ngexesha lakho kunye nomonde.
Siyabonga ke sikhathi sakho nokubekezela kwakho.
So this is some of the work we are doing in our group at the CSR.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Maybe we can take 1 or 2 questions on the floor.
I think I like this because sometimes whilst you're driving, you don't want to be typing. You just want to just talk and the message is sent through. So I wish you all the best. I think I'm looking forward to it being expanded across the world. That's just a comment. Thanks.
Thank you. I share the same as a busy working mom. It will help. But for me, the flip side is in implementing it in e-government, it's more around now the issue of unemployment. So if we apply this, it means we might have to let other people go. So that's one of the risks.
Yeah, we believe actually it creates more opportunities because some of the menial tasks can be given to a machine. There are more complex tasks that only people can do. So you create efficiencies. We don't think you'll ever get into a situation where these types of technologies will replace people completely. It's more a tool to enhance efficiency.
Yeah, I think more it can be a tool for information sharing, but not replacing the whole call center sort of system. But thank you very much for your presentation, and also to the rest of our presenters. Thank you for making time to develop your presentations and deliver them, and I hope you are able to get proper engagement from this session. And to our participant also, thank you for your inputs, and I think this will go a long way to the objectives of the IST conference, where we are trying to drive the use of ICT research and innovation to solve our socio-economic challenges in the continent. So, and apologies for taking 30 minutes of your lunch time, so we can then move straight over to lunch, and I think the next session will start at 2 o'clock. Thank you.
Sharp. Presenting. Okay, all right. Did you create the link? All right, you can just log in there. There? There's no profile logged in, so I'll just need you to log in and then we'll just go to the calendar and accept it from there. It's there on your calendar, Kim?
Yeah, it's on my calendar.